Welcome to the Q&A series with Jill Eng, Mindful Reality. These are specific questions asked by real people, answered through the lens of this practice. I also offer coaching sessions in this work, as well as the opportunity to purchase personalized recorded responses to your own questions through private recordings. Please refer to the website for more information on both these services. Today I have a question from Sam. Sam writes, I can't accept my life as it is now, or any aspect of it. I'd like to get to that stage of acceptance that spiritual teachers talk about, but just can't. What are your thoughts on this subject? So firstly, I would say that I am sorry, Sam, because this is painful. I don't ever mean in this work to overlook emotions because they're painful, and frustration can be maddening. And obviously, the extent of this kind of pain can really lead to a lot of depression. This is a very technical self-inquiry practice that adheres to a very specific way of looking at things. And that doesn't mean that I am not somebody who recognizes, feels, or understands just general pain. So when people come to me for answers from this perspective, which is what I offer in these sessions here, then please understand that that is what works for me. So let's go from what you say. I can't accept my life as it is now. So the first thing I would say is maybe stop trying so hard to accept. Maybe stop trying so hard, because that adds another level of pain and exacerbates the frustration that already exists. So I've mentioned this in other recordings on this series, but just let the thoughts be there. Instead of having such a intense reaction to the thoughts and the feelings, meaning that, you want so badly to be able to accept your life, just recognize your thoughts and feelings as thoughts and feelings, whatever they are in a given moment, because sometimes we just feel so much pain and stress and frustration and irritation and anger that we don't recognize that behind those feelings are these thoughts. And I say that because if you're somebody who has any experience in meditation, the kind where you can just watch thoughts and feelings in the background of your day and just try to just see them as thoughts and don't cling to them or push them away. There's a bit of a detachment that can occur where you don't have to be identifying with the thoughts and feelings if you're seeing them as thoughts and feelings. So that's, of course, just a first approach to realize these are just thoughts. But of course, if they occupy your mind all the time, then they are painful and in the way of just, enjoying any part of your day. So that's the first thing I would say. Okay, so the next thing is that to get into the meat of this work, and I know that people listening are not necessarily aware at all of what this work is, and you can easily go to other past recordings that give some more information. And I have 2 books on this, and I have blog articles that touch upon the work as well as some podcast recordings. But in any case, where I go with the work is that I too, of course, which is why I've developed this technique, have parts of my life that I absolutely just can't accept. Or what I should say is, yes, parts of my life that just frustrate me in a way that I can't seem to do anything about changing the status of certain aspects of my life. But for me, anxiety and frustration always has wrapped around a very intense feeling that there's something I can do about things. And so I've wrapped the work around this feeling of doing and what does it mean. Now, I have done this enough with people to understand that not everybody has the same kind of thought pattern that when they feel frustrated or that they can't accept, as Sam is saying, can't accept their life, that it means that they're suffering from the feeling of pressure that there's something they need to do. So I understand that the work doesn't work for everybody in that way, but it's what I offer. So the first thing I would always say is that when you say something like, I can't accept my life as it is now, understand what you mean by now. Now is a funny word, and it's used in different ways by all different kinds of practitioners. For me, even what we call now, which would be seeing myself, my body in the space that it's occupying. I'm in a room, sitting on a piece of furniture in a house. What I'm seeing and what I would be calling and thinking of now is actually the past. Because as soon as you see something, that event is already over and over and over and over and over again as you see and see and see and see whatever it is you're doing. So know that, first of all, whatever you're saying, I can't accept my life as it is now, is really, I can't accept my life as it has been up till now. And that's always going to be the case. Now is always going to be up till now. And I understand that there are practitioners who talk about the now as a sort of continual, eternal thing. And of course, that's true in the sense that it's always now. So you can know that from here on in, every time you look at yourself in the real-time space that it's occupying, it's going to be now. But those times have not yet arrived. This is very important to understand what I'm saying. That is a thought of the future. But all you can know about your life and anything that's ever happened in it, which Sam is saying are the things that they cannot accept, those things are of the past. So I can't accept my life as it is now is really saying, I can't accept my life as it has been up till now. And then I would even ask the question, is that true? And I don't mean that in a Byron Katie kind of way. I mean that when I do that exercise with myself and I flip it around and realize, oh, what I'm really frustrated with is what I've done up till now. And then I'm like, well, am I? Because if it's over and it's the past, I can accept that. I did those things up till now because perhaps all those things I've done up till now, which would include what we would call now. If you look at yourself in the space, it's already over. So it feels like now, but it's really the past. I can accept what I've done up till now because it's over. And maybe it is just part of a continual stream of activity that's going to contribute to whatever I do next. So this is very interesting, and if it sounds convoluted, then don't take it on. But if it sounds interesting to you, then just really understand that now, in my mind, would mean real time, current, what's current. I see myself sitting on a piece of furniture, recording into this microphone. That is my current state of affairs. But really, whatever I saw is now the past. And time is so fleeting. And so that's always going to be the case. So if that is true, then what Sam is really saying is, I can't accept my life as it has been up till now. And that might be a different kind of feeling. So I would sit with that feeling, especially because truly, as I've said over and over and over again in all of my work, there is no way to know anything about the future. There is no way to know anything that your body will do. And I talk about the body because in my work, that is the only tool for action. The organism, the person in the space that moves and acts via bodily skeletal movements. This is the only actor of the person you call Sam. So because we only know what we do by looking at our body in the space, because even if you say, well, I know it from the inside. I know what I'm doing from the inside. And I know what I'm going to do next from the inside. And I know what my life's going to be from here on in because I've seen what it's been up till now. And that's not going to change because it's never changed up till now. And believe me, I understand that argument. I am a human. I am no different than anybody else in that way. Even though I use this work, I understand the feeling of the mind and how it's projecting a certain way. It feels like it knows what the person is going to do next, which would mean it knows what the future of that person is going to be, which means it knows that it's going to eternally be frustrated because nothing's going to change, because I've never seen myself make a change up till now. I understand that play of words and feelings, but it's not a truth because thoughts are the only thing that appear in a mind. And thoughts appear, they surface involuntarily, automatically, spontaneously. There's no person in a brain drumming up the thoughts. So we are vulnerable to whatever thoughts we're going to have in the same way we are vulnerable to what other aspects of our body is going to function as it's going to function. But in reality, if you pay attention to what thoughts are, they just arise. And because there's no way to know what they are going to be, that means that there's no power that a thought has about knowing what's coming next. But that doesn't make a difference, perhaps, for this conversation or the pain and frustration that Sam is enduring and has endured up till now. So we can't know anything that we're going to do next and how our life might change. And because of that, I would still keep advising that when you think of your life now, think of your life up till now for the reasons that I explained earlier. Let's touch upon the second part of the question. Sam writes, I'd like to get to that stage of acceptance that spiritual teachers talk about, but just can't. So I too have a background in more classic non-dualism and meditation, and I would say it certainly backs up my ease in surrendering. I would say that I am one of those spiritual teachers that Sam is talking about, but I don't particularly think of my work as spiritual, even though it certainly would fall into that category, because I base it more on reality and physical reality and nature and put reality into that category because it's very tangible for me to understand that what we're calling action and what I spend my time doing is a physical act by a physical organism that is run by a nervous system that produces all of its outputs of behavior unconsciously. That there is no conscious self that directs a brain or a nervous system that makes my body act as it does. So that is the framework. And again, if you want more information on the technique and practice and awareness body of work I have developed, I would go back to my books or again, some of the other recordings that go into depth. But here is how I would answer the question. I'd like to get to that stage of acceptance. I would say that what you want to surrender to is reality. And I'd say the physical reality of what your body has done up till now, which is what all of your actions have been. In other words, how you have spent your time up till now. And the reason I would say to surrender to the truth of it is not only is it over and it was the past, but it was the only thing your body could have done. You know, in a way, it's that we are forced by nature to be in the physical behavior we are in because our brains are making those choices for us, and there is no way to interfere with that. And where I go with that truth is that if there is no alternative behavior that can ever be occurring in a given moment, right? As we've discussed, the given moment is already over, but you can see, look at your body in this space and understand that the limbs and the words coming out of my mouth and all of the physical behavior you see of your body in the space on the surface piece of furniture or floor that it's on, that is occurring via outputs by your nervous system. And the reason that I say there's no choice in the matter is because we can only find out what those outputs are as we see them occurring, which is already after the fact. So I take that very raw piece of scientific observation and I turn it into an awareness that if that is the case, and I have no way to get behind my actions the way it feels and never have been able to, that means that there is only this path of truth and reality to my existence, which even if it's frustrating because I'm comparing it to a standard of how I wish or wished I was behaving, even if it's frustrating, what it ultimately means is that it was correct. It was correct. It is correct. Everything I've done up till now, including these words coming out of my mouth, sitting on this piece of furniture, talking into the microphone, this stream of physical behavior, which is the same as if you were mapping out your heartbeat or your breath or your blinks or swallows, compared to any other kind of physical behavior you would look of the organism. It's just a stream of continuity of these bone skeletal tasks in the space, because really there is nothing else that we can realistically call action. Even if you want to think, well, my thoughts are my actions. Well, your thoughts are physical outputs by a brain, but they're just thoughts. And thoughts just lead to thoughts and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts. Thoughts can cross over and lead into actions because actions are bodily movements in the space. So they're two different things. But if it's true that this was the only path for me of bodily movement that was ever possible, physically possible, because there's no me or I thought or self that can get behind a bodily movement the way it feels, because of that truth and reality, it means it was the correct one. And I understand that not everybody gets relief from that in the way it relieves me. And it forces a type of surrender that might be a little different than the way other teachers in this kind of in this kind of non-dualistic practice emphasize. Nevertheless, for me, if nothing else was ever physically possible and will ever be physically possible, the way I believed before I realized this awareness, because nothing else is possible, there does not exist that alternative in the way that it feels. There are people who are in the no free will world, which I am in, but I come at it from this angle. Others come at it from a different angle, perhaps just even more based in the pure science of it. The phrase is, could not have done otherwise. Could not have done otherwise in a way that was up to you. You could not have done otherwise in a way that was up to you. And when I say you, I mean the felt sense of a conscious inner self that directs and chooses and guides behavior. That inner self never existed. So an alternative to your behavior up till now was never physically possible. And from here on in, it will never be physically possible in the way it is felt, where it is up to you. In other words, up to that conscious inner self. However, that does not mean that behavior won't change. I mean, behavior is always changing. There's never 1 second of behavior that is like anything before it. It's just that someone would argue, well, yeah, I just keep doing the same things I'm doing every day. Yes, in a certain kind of way, but they're always different and we're always changing and we're always in a state of change, right? Our brains are always navigating the space afresh, newly, like any organism on the planet, right? We would see that. Does the lobster do the exact same thing every day? Well, in a certain way, yes, but of course it's different. If you stared at the movements, you would know that every time it moved its leg, maybe it went to the same place, but we would understand that that was a new time, a new movement in a new moment. And I'm saying this to emphasize the fact that no thing that Sam has ever done one day to the next is ever the same. Though I understand that doesn't necessarily relieve Sam of the feeling of frustration that, well, it seems the same, right? I keep going to the same places, doing the same things, eating the same foods, going to the same restaurants, going to the same jobs, like whatever it is. It seems the same, but my point is that there is no person inside the mind behind the thoughts that causes the bodily movement. In the exact same way that if somebody believed that they caused the weather, which I'm sure thousands of years ago people believed they caused the weather, and then you found out, oh, you don't cause the weather. The weather is being caused by molecular laws that have its own functions based in the molecules and chemistry of whatever makes up the atmosphere that causes weather. And so the next time the weather did something you didn't want, you'd realize, I don't cause the weather. I just see the weather, and I sometimes suffer from the weather. And sometimes I don't suffer from the weather, but there's no me that is responsible for causing the weather. And I'm trying to say that it is the exact same thing with what we call our actions and our behavior, even our thoughts. There's no us that causes our thoughts. There's no us that causes our feelings. There's no us that causes our bones to move in the ways that they do. I mean, a person is also not responsible for where they were born and the continual stream of every speck of their life in the environments they were in. And people say, that's crazy. I mean, I chose to be with this person. I chose to live here. No, you did not. Not consciously. It's just one millisecond after another of an organism in space moving as it does via the unconscious neurological outputs of a nervous system. So if that's the case, and there was never a way to get behind your behavior, as there has never been a way for us to get behind the weather, we would not feel the same kind of inner blame. It doesn't mean we wouldn't be frustrated. If you were born into a place that there was a perpetual drought, if you were born into a place where it never stopped raining or the heat was unbearable, and it seemed like there was never going to be a way to get out of that, maybe it's the same frustration. I am just trying to peel away at least at that layer. So for me, as the teacher that Sam says, I would like to get to that stage of acceptance that people talk about, I would say that the type of surrender is, for me in my work, is that there is no way to get behind my behavior, but that translates into the fact that the behavior is correct. Now, that may not fit into the world that I think about, the world that I aspire to, the world that I always imagined that I would be behaving in. In other words, the world in my head that I've had, since I was little, and imagining that my life would be a certain way. Or in other words, even if I didn't imagine my life a certain way, I imagined that my life would not be the way it is now. Speaking to the parts of my life that are frustrating and that I feel like I can never get out of, and I can't imagine I will ever get out of. But what's interesting for me is if that world was never true, if it was never true that there was a way that I could pave that way, then what I'm left with is reality, which is really, in my work, nature. Because our organism and the functioning of human behavior is 100% natural and of nature in the exact same way that we would think of any other creature or organism on the planet that we would understand is just simply part of nature and has no way to be different. And that would include something like a tornado or a hurricane or a bug. I mean, we certainly don't imagine that an ant crawling on the ground has the ability to choose its path of movement or what's going to happen to it externally. This is how of nature we are. And our nervous system, if you break it down, our nervous system is making decisions for us all day long in coordination with all the other systems in our body and the environment. And that's kind of it. So for me, nature is very powerful as a reality, as a landmark of what is real and possible. And there is no part of my person, my organism, that is outside of that. And then everything softens emotionally, and there's a compassion and a true surrender that people talk about, that there's no separation, there's no separate self. And there isn't. And that is what I'm talking about here. There's no self in the brain that is the thing we feel that consciousness is, or a feel of what I call voluntarism, that there's some voluntary ability to step out of the stream of involuntary automatic nervous system outputs of our organism and the conditions that we are born into and living through every millisecond of our life. So for me, to answer Sam's question, that is how I got to the stage of full acceptance and surrender and compassion. And it doesn't mean that I am not victim and vulnerable and subject to my thought patterns that trail through my mind all day long, every day. However, I accept them to be what they are. They are thoughts and feelings that do not mirror anything about my life except for the fact that they're there humming in the background. And I put the information and the messaging that's coming through on the thoughts up against physical reality. That is the self-inquiry practice. So if the thoughts are, I'm never going to get out of this situation, I'm never going to have enough money to live on, I am never going to be able to fill in the blank. That's a thought, and it's not based in reality, because reality would be what my body spends time doing in the space it occupies. And all I can know about that is what my body has done up till now. There would never be a way to know what I'm even going to do in 4 minutes from now, even if I had it all planned out. The phone could ring. Someone could knock on the door. I could stub my toe. I could sprain my ankle. I could suddenly just find myself in some behavior that wasn't what I thought I was going to do. So I can't know what comes next. That really is 100% true. And everything I've done up till now has been correct. And I like that. I like to know that I'm right in my life, because we want to know that we're living our life correctly. And that doesn't mean correct as in morally just or anything like that. Even if a person has done injury or harm or offense to other people, unfortunately, it would still mean it was the right action based on that person's path. But even that person would not know what comes next. And that's how I'm going to leave things today. So I hope that's clear and gives a little bit of relief to Sam and anybody else listening to this. Thanks. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Q&A series with Jill Eng, Mindful Reality. And if you are interested in coaching sessions or personalized recordings, please refer to the website at jillengmindfulreality.com. Thanks, and see you next time.